my kind of day job was in email marketing. I was in the online industry, but in the kind of email marketing industry for a little while. I built lists, sold affiliate products, yeah, in like a variety of niches. So like tons of different niches, a lot of different campaigns, and that done really well for about 3 or 4 years. But things started to change in the email marketing industry, and I decided to just kind of diversify some income, which is the reason why I kind of came into kind of niche site building.
Okay.
So yeah.
And did you work for yourself with the email marketing, or were you part of a bigger organization?
Yeah, good question. I was all self-employed. So I literally went online, figured out, kind of typed in how to make money online type stuff. And yeah, you get just an avalanche of information, just sifted through everything. And for me, email marketing kind of it stuck out because the returns are pretty good. And obviously, if you know how to write an email and you've got like a tailor-made audience, then eventually, if you write the correct emails to them, they're going to pull out credit card and buy something. So it aligned with what I was willing to do at the time, and it worked. It worked really well.
And what shifted with email
Yeah,
marketing? I'm a big fan of it myself, but yeah, what made you want to look for other options?
essentially, if you do email marketing the correct way, you probably will keep an account open for indefinitely, right? But unfortunately, sometimes you can, I guess, send the wrong emails out, and you have the wrong subscribers opt in, and that just means that you've run the risk of getting an account closed down. And for me, it happened just too many times. Sometimes these kind of companies will just do checks, random checks, and they'll just ask you general questions and stuff, and usually you pass them. But sometimes they'll just blanket ban your account, and I think it happened once or twice in some of my biggest accounts, and I thought this is ridiculous. Like I've lost my entire business almost overnight. So I said I've got to diversify because this isn't gonna sustain like a family. So yeah.
And it's funny you mention it that way because for a lot of affiliate marketers or other, just people that work online, and I really encourage people to build an email list because that is an asset that is sort of
Yeah,
agnostic. But I have had those experiences where basically the email marketing company like an Aweber or Active Campaign or fill in the blank. There's 20 or 30 of them out there, or even more.
yeah,
Yeah, they could just shut down your account, not refund your money, and they basically don't have to tell you anything. So
yeah. No reasons.
heartbreaking when when that happens. So okay,
Okay.
that's a whole other area. But you realized I need to diversify, and you got into affiliate marketing. So I take it you were probably aware that people were building affiliate sites and getting SEO traffic versus your email list building route. So, how did
Yeah.
you navigate into purchasing the site?
Definitely. So I understood that. Well, I understood that you could build blogs. Obviously, that's kind of like a given. But I didn't really understand the monetization models of having a website. It's very different to email marketing. That's kind of just one additional monetization method. So I kind of figured out, okay, this website thing it's been around for a little while. I understand why it's important, but I wanted to find out how much money you can make. Essentially, that was really important because I was trying to diversify income and I wanted to know, okay, with this asset, how much can I make? So that's kind of where I navigated through to, and that's when I kind of found these Facebook groups. And within those Facebook groups, I figured out, okay, so you can sell for 30x, 25x, whatever, or more. It's an asset, and obviously it's based on monthly income. So that was really attractive to me. Having an asset that continued to build month on month, and then it had the possibility to sell for 30x at the end of, I don't know, year one or year two. It was very attractive. So research, and it kind of took me to a Facebook group, and that's where I bought, I guess, the first asset at the time.
What kind of information were you looking for from the seller before making the purchase?
Yeah, good question. So in hindsight, I probably didn't ask enough questions, right? I was pretty new to buying websites. I tried to do as much due diligence as possible, but I mean, unless you do this full time or you have a team that understands how to buy websites, you're gonna miss stuff, right? And a funny story is I missed a few things in the website. So for example, when I saw it, for me, what stuck out was it had an okay link profile. It'd been around for a little while. I think it had been purchased about three. The domain had been purchased about 3 years ago, so it had some track record there. But what kind of sealed it for me was it had about 60,000 or maybe 50,000 words of unpublished content, which I thought, okay, fantastic. Why hasn't he published it? Maybe I'm just going to pick up the website, publish the content, and it's just going to pour in the traffic. But what I didn't realize was that the content was basically rubbish. It was just like very generic, not spun, but very badly, poorly written English, and I would have to go through everything and reformat it. And importantly, it had no SEO value, really. It had no keywords attached to it. So it was almost like a blank slate, almost. So those are the things I was looking for.
Okay. Yeah, and I know kind of I know what you're talking about. I purchased a
Yeah.
site back in the day just to kind of go through the process at a particular vendor and marketplace. And yeah,
Mhm.
the content was basically garbage. It was fine if you read it, but there was no real information and no keywords, so there was no traffic. What were the stats on the site? How much
Yeah.
traffic was it getting? How many
Yeah.
articles and some other details like that?
It was well. Let's go for finance first. Commissions. It was making about $200 actually when I first picked it up. Well, that was the average for the last, I guess, 6 months. Content. It had about 50 articles published, I reckon. Based on those two things, it was like, okay, seems like to be kind of a good asset. Good content, good monetization history. Like I mentioned, the links looked okay. Wasn't a link expert at the time, so I didn't really know what I was looking for, but it didn't look too spammy looking at the kind of link profile. So yeah, those are the kind of the two or three main things. Also, I checked out what keywords it was ranking for on, I guess, page two, because that was pretty important. And I just wanted to see if I could rank additional pages based on that information. So it had like, I don't know, about 7 or 8 really good keywords on page two. So that was a kind of a plus sign for me to pick it up.
Do you remember how much traffic it was getting at the time?
Traffic. It was about 150 site visitors, page views a day, probably something like that, in and around that. Definitely under 200 and probably above 100. So it was doing okay.
Okay. So maybe like 5,000 visitors a month or so.
Yeah, something in that range. Yeah.
Okay. Pretty cool. And then you said the content looked okay, and I take it the keywords looked all right.
Mhm.
Did you look for anything else specific, like within the content as quality markers or the formatting or anything like that?
Yeah. So I was getting to grips with CRO. So I wanted to see. I don't really. Well, at the time, it made sense to buy something that had good CRO. But looking at it now in hindsight, it's probably better to buy something with bad conversion rate optimization because you can change it and spike the conversions, right? So it had okay CRO, seemed to be working because the best pages had good conversion rates based on kind of what Amazon was telling me. So that looked okay. In terms of the content quality, I did read through some of it, not all of it. There was a lot of content there, but the main pages, and they were well written. I believe the person who was selling it had, I guess, a friend that was writing it. Maybe they was in the industry at the time, so they had some experience. So they wrote it. It wasn't fantastic, but it was okay for me just to go back and just tweak some stuff.
And you mentioned the backlinks looked okay, nothing
Yeah.
too crazy or spammy. Do you remember how many there were? And do you know if they were like
But
guest post or some other kind of link building strategy?
yeah, good question. I don't remember specifically how many backlinks there were, but I do remember it had an okay mix. We'll get into this in a second, but there were some links that just didn't make any sense at all. It was like from a Russian site and had nothing to do with the industry. So I was like, okay, this is a bit questionable, but there weren't too many, but enough for me to kind of put my eye up and think, okay, these need to probably go. If I'm being honest, it didn't have as many links in the industry to industry. I mean, I might as well just say it was in the pet industry, so it didn't have many links from the pet industry like connecting towards it. So that was probably a way for something I could build on. The owner at the time had about 6 or 7 sites, so he did mention that this was one of his smaller ones, and it was just kind of twiddling away. It done well maybe a year ago, but as he spent more time on other sites, it lost focus. So there wasn't many new links pointing to the site because he hadn't done much outreach.
So mostly looked pretty good. You thought, hey, let's pull the trigger. You did some negotiation.
Yeah,
And did you use an escrow at all, or you just paid direct because it was a
yeah, yeah. Funny story. So with escrow, first time I ever used it, we set it all up. We negotiated price, and we went into escrow. And he kept asking me, have I verified escrow? Have I verified escrow? And I was like, yeah, it's been done. So he asked me a few times. I went back into it, and I just essentially clicked. At the time, I thought it was verified, but I think it was accept payment or something like that, and the payment just went straight to him before I actually got the website. And I was like, okay. I read through it. I was like, wait, did I just send him all the money? So I sent him a message. Luckily, he was just a good guy, honest guy, and he said, "Yeah, that's fine. You've sent the money by accident. We'll still go through with it." But yeah, that's a good tip. Be careful with escrow because you can make mistakes.
That's funny. I've never used an escrow service, and funny thing, I have sold a website just directly, and they just wired me the money because there was a lot of. I mean, people know who I am,
Yeah,
and I'm not
yeah,
going to go and screw somebody over. So they
yeah.
were like, "Yeah, sure. If like we'll just pay the money. It wasn't even like 50% up front or any kind of thing. It was just like, here's this huge amount of money. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so there's some good people out there. There's some
yeah.
good
Luckily,
people.